President Venustiano Carranza was born on the 29th of December to a rich landowning family. His parents provided him with good education in Mexico City. His father was a colonel who fought in the French-Mexican War and was considered a war hero. President Venustiano Carranza initially wanted to become a doctor, however due to medical reasons he could not. Instead, he used his family's wealth to boost his political career. He became politically active in 1877. He idolized Benito Juárez and initially allied himself with Francisco Madero's faction. In 1893, he and his brothers rebelled against the rule of Coahuila Governor José María Garza, who was a corrupt asset of President Porfirio Díaz. As a result, Carranza made friends in high places, including Bernardo Reyes. Before the Mexican Revolution and his presidency, Carranza served as governor of Coahuila. He was successful largely due to his ability to portray himself as a stern, wise patriarch who was the nation's best hope for peace. However, his inability to compromise led to several severe setbacks. He ignored and often was indifferent to corruption in those who surrounded him. Carranza was not confirmed as governor by Díaz, and he joined the movement of Francisco Madero, who called for rebellion after the 1910 presidential election. Carranza did not contribute much to Madero's rebellion but was rewarded with the post of Minister of War in Madero's cabinet. This aggravated revolutionaries such as Pancho Villa and Pascual Orozco. Carranza was not a true believer in reform, and he felt that a firmer hand, more preferably his, was needed to rule Mexico. He drew up the Plan de Guadalupe, which was a political plan to oust HOTA. In 1913, Carranza led his forces against Victoriano Huerta, who had assassinated Madero. Carranza's forces were victorious and Huerta was deposed, and Carranza became president. He established printed money laws prior to his victory, however his government was legitimized by Huerta's fall. However, Carranza's constitutionalist army began to fall apart afterwards, as the provisional governments Carranza established around Mexico were becoming opposed by rebels such as Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata, who wanted social reform. When Huerta fell, Carranza, supported by Obregón, was the strongest candidate to fill the power vacuum. When Carranza became the president of Mexico on May 1, 1917, hostilities with Villa and Zapata broke out almost immediately. Although Villa had a more formidable army, Obregón was a better tactician and Carranza was able to portray Villa as a sociopathic bandit in the press. Additionally, Carranza held Mexico's two main ports, and therefore his forces earned more revenue than Villa's. However, Venustiano Carranza brought little change, disappointing those who wanted to see a new, more liberal Mexico. President Carranza did little to reform land ownership, the regulation of natural resources, and labor concerns in the country. His term as president continued to deal with Villa and Zapata, government financial issues, and his tendency to not put forth any substantial federal policies. President Carranza's nationalism made relations with Mexico and the U.S. decline as he did little to further diplomacy between the two nations. Carranza had prevented Pancho Villa's capture by U.S. forces, opposed the U.S. occupation of Veracruz, and in 1918, Carranza had made an effort to bring the Mexican oil industry back under Mexican control. In 1919, Obregón decided to run for president, and Carranza attempted to crush his former ally, as he already had his hand-picked successor in Ignacio Bonillas. Obregón's supporters were repressed and killed and Obregón himself decided that Carranza would never leave office peacefully. In his last few months as president, Carranza attempted to force the next election of President of Mexico to be his chosen successor, Ignacio Bonillas, despite the lack of support from his generals. Álvaro Obregón led an armed rebellion against Carranza in April 1920. Carranza fled the capital heading to Veracruz. His train was attacked, and Carranza and a few of his top advisors and supporters fled to the mountains and were received by a local chieftain, Rodolfo Herrera. The chieftain's men opened fire on a sleeping Carranza late night on May 21, 1920, killing him and his men. President Carranza is presently known as one of the Big Four of the Mexican Revolution, along with Zapata, Villa, and Obregón. However, He is arguably the least well-known of the four.